Morning all, it's Chris Thompson here from Property Portal Marketing, and I've done it again. I've said good morning.
Said morning.
I said good morning. It's going to go out Friday evening, but I've said good morning. I'm not finished. I'm not quitting that now. I'm ahead and I'm doing it. So there we are. I've got my coffee this morning. I'm doing a lot better. Yesterday was probably our worst recording ever, I think. It was awful. So I said, no, that is not going out like that. So we're doing it again, aren't we? Which is good. We are doing a smaller podcast today, just based on some of the questions that we had from last week's podcast, which talked about portals from an agent perspective. We had a couple of questions come through, and we had a couple of things that were probably discussed last week that needed a little bit more clarification this week. So that's what we're doing today, which should be fun, I think. And I've got a wealth of knowledge to give you, I hope. So let's crack on. So it's probably best, I think we had a couple of questions, didn't we?
So we did have a couple of questions. One of
Okay.
them, or let's say first of them, was out of all the portals out there. So we know Idealista and we know 𝗣cie𝗿𝘀 and we know the big ones. And a question was, which or what other portals are out there internationally that we could market on?
So this is quite a broad question because it will massively depend on your target market. And I think the thing that you have to do with this is understand your target market, understand who you're trying to target as a business, and go from there, really. And you also have to analyze the portals that you potentially want to advertise on and the portals that will approach you as well, which we'll cover a little bit later on. But essentially, there are a lot of portals out there. There's new ones, there's well-established ones. It really depends on where you are. So obviously, if you want to target the UK, there's some pretty big ones out there. So that's the likes of A Place in the Sun. You've got Rightmove. You've got Zoopla. You've got Think Spain, which also tends to target a UK market. You've got 𝗣cie𝗿𝘀 also, which is good for the UK. If you want to have a look at somewhere like France or international, you've got Greenacres, which is always traditionally good for the French market, and has established now into offering more sort of Scandinavian ones. If you want to reach the sort of Dutch investors and Dutch people, then you have got something like Connect Houses, which is really, really good for that. Another good one for the UK would be 𝗍𝑚ove. They've recently sort of started building up again. That's actually now being run from somebody who used to work at 𝗣cie𝗿𝘀, so really experienced within that industry. If you want to look at more of a luxury market, then you've got things like James Edition, 𝗎𝑦.com, which tend to focus more on the Chinese market. It really depends on who you want to specifically target, who is your target audience. And I think that's very clear that you have to
was one of the other questions.
kind of find
how
that
do you
out
go
before.
about choosing the right portal for us? So I think
Exactly.
it's about knowing which audience you're targeting.
Yes, of course. I think one of the other sort of things that came up on that was German markets. There are a couple of German portals that you can use. I think one of those ones is immowelt.de. There is, of course, Idealista as well and 𝗪𝗪𝗪. So Idealista is focused much more on the Spanish market, and 𝗪𝗪𝗪 is also focused on the Spanish market as well. So that's if you want to tap into the local markets, you can do that. In terms of talking about new portals, I guess I could, in theory, I could sit here and talk until I'm blue in the face about it, because there's just so many out there that you could use. I think
plus, there are many new ones.
There's a lot of new ones as well.
There's a lot of new ones.
I approached on a regular basis from new portals who sort of say to me, "Oh, I notice you work in marketing. You must have quite a lot of companies that you want to promote our portal on, and you know, can you have a relationship with us? Can you have a partnership with us?" and things like that. And look, I'm a big fan of portals, right? As I spoke about last week quite heavily, because I still believe that they still have a very important part to play within the industry, certainly from a consumer perspective. And from an agency perspective as well, they can generate leads, and they do generate leads. But I think the big thing is with all of these sort of new portals that are coming to market is it's very easy as an agent to always want more leads, right? Great, the more leads we have, the more chances we have of making sales, therefore fantastic, right? So yes, that is the case. But firstly, don't forget that you do have a database of clients already that need to be worked. But more importantly, is when it comes to these new portals who ring you every week in, week out with these great offers, don't just jump straight in at a price point because you think it's going to be viable for your business. Someone says to you and goes, oh, I know you want more leads. I've got this really great offer for you. It's going to be 99 euros a month for the next 6 months, right? And I'm going to...
Okay, they'll say yes.
I get it from an agent's perspective, as I say, it's more leads, right? We'll give it a go, right? Let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. But advertising on a portal is so much more than that. There are probably a series of around about at least 5 to 10 questions that you should be asking that salesperson on the end of the phone to really determine as to whether that portal is going to be worth your time and your money. 99 euros a month transfers to just under 600 euros for that 6 months, right? That's a heck of a lot of money if it doesn't work out for you, especially when it's coming into now the summer months, the peaks and troughs are a little bit quieter. You still have to, every lead that you get through, if indeed you get any leads through, you still have to work those leads. You still have to give them to a staff member. You still have to pay that staff member. You still have to pay for the advertising. You still have to pay for your office space. You still have to pay for the time on the phone. All of those kind of things. And all of those things cost money. So don't just dive straight in and say, that sounds really good, let's give it a go. Take a step back, right, and ask those important questions. If you want some examples of questions, because I'm quite sure that there will be people saying, yes, I want some examples. It's things like, right, what are you bringing to the market that's not there already? Who is your target market? Do you offer language translations, or do I have to translate automatically? Can I have videos on the site? What's your upload process? How do my properties look on your website? Do I have logos? What brand presence do I get with you? Do you generate leads by sending people to my website, or do you generate leads through a contact form on the website? All of that kind of thing. How quickly do you take to update my properties? Can I upload properties manually, or do I have to use an XML feed? In which case, if I use an XML feed, what are your formats, right? There are all of those things are going to be really, really important in terms of determining whether that portal is going to be viable for your business or not. And if you're not asking those questions, and you're just XML feed gun happy, right? As in, you send me the invoice, I'll pay it, and there we go. Then you might find that you've made a bad decision, and that bad decision that you make might actually cloud your judgment of portals altogether.
In general.
In general, exactly. It might cloud your judgment in general, so that when a fully established, decent portal comes along and says to you, well, okay, here we are, this is what we're doing, all of this kind of stuff, you're a really big name in the industry, and they are more expensive, you might then not consider it because of the bad experiences you've had before, because you've not asked those big questions, right? Don't be afraid. Essentially what I'm saying here is don't be afraid to ask the questions. And always a big one is, where do you rank on Google? I think one of the things that came up quite a lot last week when we spoke to Jane and Ian was essentially looking at where the portals rank within the big search engines. And one of the reasons that portals are still a really good way of marketing is because they tend to appear higher than your own agency website, right? When it's like property for sale in Spain, or property for sale in Greece, or property for sale in certain areas, portals tend to appear first. Whereas certainly a fully established portal might. A newer portal might not. It might take them time to get there. Of course, that's why they're throwing the offer out, because they need to get the stock in. But even so, if you don't ask where they're ranked, or what they're going to do, all these things, as I say, it might end up being a pretty expensive exercise.
Let's talk a bit about our role as agents on portals, because you said, I'm getting this amazing offer and I'm saying yes, and I might ask the questions, I might not. But then what do I do next? I'm just providing the XML feed and I'm relaxing, and it's not like that. So we discussed briefly, and we should explain a bit the fact that within portals, you always have to look at your analytics and the market insight, and you have to pay attention to what's going on constantly. So let's talk a bit about the tracking performance metrics to optimize marketing strategies within, and analyzing the market conditions and what you need to do once your listings are up on that portal.
In what particular way?
So
Yeah,
we
go
are
on, sorry.
tracking visibility and updating information and accessibility and lead generation. But to get to those lead generation, as you are on a portal where competition is high and a lot of agents are using it, and some of them might sell the same area or some of the listings. Let's talk a bit about.
I think from a content perspective, you're probably a good one to speak about that, because obviously, as we know, that first impressions will count for a lot. When we talk about advertising on portals, what do you think are the things that agents should do within their content and within their listings to promote them a little bit better or make them look a little bit better?
Right. So for everyone, we agree that portals are a convenient platform for browsing listings and updating and putting your properties out there. Now, we need to consider the fact that when using a portal as a real estate agent, you have to update your information to keep your listings current with real-time updates. And sometimes mentioned before, that agents are complaining on the fact that their listings might go down and some of them might try to cheat up the system a bit. So next questions. What do agents need to do on portals to increase visibility, have enhanced listings, and at the end get those lead generation? What do I have to do as an agent to get visibility on portals and come on top?
So there are certain aspects of portal advertising that you can control, and obviously there are things that you can't control. The things that you can control are really, really, really should be taken advantage of. So that is things like, obviously, the content is a big one. First impressions count for a lot. So obviously make sure that your image gallery is exactly the way that you want it to be. So let's not have bathrooms. Let's not have bedrooms.
Oh, come on.
Let's not have houses with paint stripping off the
Messy
walls.
beds and the cat in the door.
Exactly. We don't want any of that as first viewpoint. It's things like if you mention a sea view in the description or the title is sea view property in Spain.
With a parking space.
Don't start with a car parking space, right? I know it sounds really simple, but we see it on a daily basis. And first impressions count for a lot. So if you say there's a sea view, at least have an image of a sea view, of the sea view, right? Or if it says modern open plan interior, have a nice picture of the modern plan open interior. If it says large swimming pool, exactly. It sounds simple, but it's amazing how many agents don't do that. And I think one of the good things that you can have is making sure that the order of the images is a really good order. So normally you'd start off with front of the house and then you work your way through, a bit like a video, really. So that's one big thing you can be in control of, which is the imagery. In terms of the descriptions, that is another big thing as well. Don't forget that you're not just selling property; you are selling a lifestyle, whether people are buying for a holiday home or whether they're buying for rental investment or whether they're buying for to move out there permanently. A question of where that property is and the area in which it's located is still going to be an important factor to help somebody decide whether that property is right for them or not. An area is just as important as the property itself. So maybe put a little bit of maybe add to the description a little bit about the area that property is in as well. That can massively influence the quality of the listing. In terms of other things that you can control the amount of listings that you're sending through to the portal. For sure, most of the portals that are out there, they tend to work on packages. So, for example, they will price point based on packages, so you have control of the amount of listings you can send them. You also have control over sort of boosts and premiums. So one thing that sort of came up last week, and also I think we had a question on this as well, is there any way that you can manipulate listings? We're going to cover that in a second because it's a little bit more important. But come on.
So let's not manipulate the system. Just try to update information, keep the listings current, update the price if there is any change, update the status in there, update the description a bit. And importantly, if you have duplicate content, so basically if you're reselling or you're working with a developer and he's put the properties in there out for all of them, just use different images, different description, different title for the properties.
One thing that you just going back to the premiums and the boosts, the reasons that some of the portals, I know that A Place in the Sun offers that, for example. the reasons that they brought those in was because a lot of agents were and still are trying to manipulate the system, in that essentially what they're trying to do is always make sure that their listings are at the top of the listings, so that when people search for property, they're always number one. Well, a lot of portals are cracking down on that because, and I understand why agents are doing it, but a lot of portals are cracking down on it because it's seen as cheating the system, right? And yeah, agents always want to be seen. I get that. But I think you have to bear in mind that the way that an agent searches on a portal is different to the way that the general public search on a portal, right? So what you would hope is that at some point, one of your properties is going to be seen within that area, within that search. And I do get it. But I think in terms of trying to manipulate that system, if everybody does it, then it kind of defeats the object anyway, because you literally have to sit there and go, change the ref number, change the ref number every day. It's changing the ref number. And if 20, 30 agents are doing exactly the same thing, it doesn't make a difference anyway. But in terms of those boosts, those premiums, yes, they do cost a little bit more money, but that is a way of portals trying to offer additional solutions to agents. That means that they can be back at the top of the search results, and they can feature their properties without having to go down a manipulation route. I know that Rightmove have stamped that out, or they should have stamped that out. There were certainly bits and pieces that came out from them a few years ago that said they were looking to stamp that out. I know that A Place in the Sun have started looking at solutions for that as well. And I know that other portals at some point are going to start cracking down on it too. So try not to manipulate the system, because there are alternative solutions. It doesn't really help you if every other agent is doing the same, because then it just defeats the object. Then you have to create more work just by going in and doing it again and again and again. And actually, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, because it just popped in my mind. So we are talking about advertising a bit. What's, in your opinion, because you've been working with portals for a long time, what's the optimal length of time to advertise on portals?
I would suggest going with a period of usually 3 to 6 months, and giving it a full 6 months before you start analyzing that portal anyway. The reason I say that is you've got to bear in mind that a lot of the people who go on portals are probably relatively early on. I'd say probably not looking to buy for at least 6 months to a year, right? Purely because of that educational phase. There are people who go onto a portal, and without a shadow of a doubt, there are people who go onto a portal, are ready to buy, and they're just looking for houses, and then they fly out. But the majority of people, I think, who tend to use portals are a little bit earlier on and go onto the portal to search properties, and then they are within a 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months time frame, right? Which means that you're not going to fully benefit from that portal unless you cover that average term. So if you take a 3-month package on a portal, and to be honest, to be fair, a lot of them have stopped doing 3-month packages now anyway. Not because they want more money, but because it's better for the agent in the long run to give it a full term and then analyze it based on the average person who's visiting the website or who's visiting the portal. So I would always suggest at least doing a 6-month period and then fully analyzing it afterwards, because it gives you a better overview of that portal in general, rather than 3-month stint, which isn't going to do a lot for you. Yes, it might generate leads over that 3-month period, but you're not going to, unless you hit a miracle, right? You're not going to be able to fully analyze those leads until probably the 6 to 12 month mark. So I would always give it longer than a shorter time frame. And actually, a lot of portals probably will advise you the same anyway. And as I say, that's not because they want more money out of you. That's just because they want you, and we want you to get a broader aspect of how that portal will work for you, what kind of leads they can generate. Can they generate any sales out of it? Can you generate any sales out of it? And you're going to do that over a longer time frame than a shorter time frame. Just going back to what you can control in terms of that. Or did we cover everything with that? I think we might have done, actually. So one thing that I was going to mention actually is in terms of the manipulation. So one thing is a lot of the ways that agents try and manipulate is basically by changing the ref number, right? Because in theory, if you change your ref number, the way that portals work is they will see it as a new listing, because they'll essentially go through it and they'll say, oh, well, our system has not picked up on that ref number before, therefore it must be a new listing, right? But the issue with that is it's not a new listing. right? Essentially, what's happened is you've just changed the ref number and everything else will be exactly the same. So the images will be exactly the same. The descriptions will be exactly the same. So from a consumer perspective, it's not really a brand new listing. It's a listing that's been recycled, right? Now, for me personally, there's nothing wrong with taking an old listing. Let's say if you've got a listing that's been on for 3 or 4 months, right? There's nothing wrong with removing that listing, doing a few things to it,
And
and then
uploading it again.
re-uploading it again. What I think most portals, and I think that most portals would probably agree with me on that, where the problem is when agents bulk manipulate. So every day they're going in and switching the ref number, changing the ref number without really doing anything else. It's not a brand new listing. I understand fully why agents are doing it. And yes, there probably is a conversation here where portals themselves need to do more to rotate listings and make sure that everything is, all of the agents are being seen at some point. There probably has to be some responsibility on the portal with that. But from an agent's perspective and from a consumer perspective, it's not a brand new listing. It's just a listing that's been recycled. And I think a lot like when you're buying something, people do. You might look at one thing one day, they might look at another thing another day, they might come back to the site they're on before. No, it's not just a situation where someone goes to a place and there's someone. I was going to say a place in the sun again, then, but let's use someone else for an example. Let's use Europe.properties, right? Another portal, Europe.properties. They've been around for a couple of years. They offer both commission and paid for packages. But let's say them as an example, right? So somebody might go to Europe.properties today, look at a few listings and go, oh yeah, that looks kind of nice, but they might not make an inquiry straight away. They might go away, talk to a few people. They might go on 𝗣cie𝗿𝘀. They might go on to Connect Houses. They might go on to Green Acres. They might go on to James Edition. They might go back to Europe.properties, right? And if they looking on new listings and they're seeing the same listing that they saw 3 days ago, that's not a new listing. That's a recycled listing. So it doesn't look great from a consumer's perspective as well. So again, that's something for agents to bear in mind. Manipulation is not always, at some point it's going to be stamped out, and there will have to be alternative methods like the boosts, like the premiums, and things like that. And yes, I hold my hands up and say there does have to be some responsibility on portals, I think, to make sure that that agencies are being seen at various points. I do agree, and I do see the agent struggle here.
You're out of coffee.
I am out of coffee now as well. And I was like, oh, I was really looking forward to that, but I'm out of coffee. I'll have another one. The other thing that we sort of touched upon, didn't we? Duplications, wasn't it?
Yeah. We did touch duplication. So yes, in some parts of Spain, and not only, we are seeing so many new builds coming up, and the developers are gonna give those properties to the agencies around, because their main interest is to sell their properties, so they don't care if they are working with one agent or with 20 of them. So of course, when you're uploading your listing onto property portals, you're gonna get duplicates. So we did discuss briefly ways to put your property out there without sounding or looking exactly like a competition. One thing will be, okay, they are all putting their own reference number, that's fine. One thing will be to just get your own images. So apart from the standard showroom package with images that you're getting from the developer, if you can go get your own images, different angles, different aspects, change the descriptions, change the title, and try to basically present it in a different way for the public.
It is. I would agree with you on there. I think the problem when it comes to new builds is a lot of the new builds that are out there are off plan. So you can't go and get an image, because otherwise all you've got is an image of a plot.
That's
right?
the thing. So some of them are under construction. Some of them are built just like the show house. So you get those standard images. Although, Chris, even on those, you don't have to. Sometimes you can just crop in. So you can just enhance one image or just use one aspect of that image. And then, so you're tweaking a bit. Graphic, you can do different layouts. You can, I know if you're getting 10,
you can, but I think one of the big ones here is is the issue. And this is just clarifying what issues you have by starting to change things, is how those properties come into the website initially, come into your own website initially, because a lot of the time, if it's an XML feed coming in, you have to make sure that that XML feed is programmed for you to be able to change things without overwriting that data. Because essentially what happens is an XML feed will come in and it will display all the properties on the website. But if you haven't programmed it correctly, what will happen is when you make changes, right, all those changes will be overwritten again when the XML feed re-updates. So if you are going to change stuff, and you have a right to change stuff if it's going to be your name next to the advert, right, then you just have to make sure that it's programmed, that the XML feed coming in is programmed correctly so that you can change it without the data overwriting. What you can't change is if it comes into your site via an API, for example, or an iframe. You can't change it. It's very difficult to change it. So changing the stuff does become a little bit more complicated. It does depend on how the data is displayed on your website. And obviously with new builds, it is a little bit more difficult because you can't go and just change an image, for example, unless you go and take a picture of the plot and things like that. But what you can do, for example, depending on who your XML feed supplier is, is you could, for example, add descriptions at the beginning or add descriptions at the end or add area descriptions. You could, in theory, change maybe the main image or something. Or you could go to the plot and you could take a picture of the plot or something like that that looks good, in order to not have,
if you can change the opening image, you can even take a beautiful image of the area where the complex is, so you can start with that, for example. So
exactly, there are little things that you can do that mean you're not just uploading, yes, you're uploading the same properties as everybody else, but it means that you are doing something slightly different to everyone else. It is difficult with duplications. I do get that. And again, where does that responsibility lie? Because effectively, if I'm an agent and I've got a new build, just because Joe Bloggs has got it down the road, I should still have the right to advertise it. It's the same for portals. It's like a portal can't say to an agent, "Oh no, you can't. We're not going to allow you to advertise that," right? Because it's not,
already uploaded 5 times.
Exactly. Where does that responsibility lie? And certainly from a portal's perspective, one thing that they are doing, for example, with Idealistas, they have a particular new build package, right, which is more expensive than a standard resales package. And over the last 2 or 3 years, to try and stop the amount of duplicates that are appearing on the site, portals are increasing their advertising rates. Again, that is not to try and get more money out of you for producing nothing. Cost of inflation and things have gone up. So, of course, prices are going up just in general. But if new advertisers go onto portal websites, now, you might find that you're being charged more money than other advertisers. And that's because the chances of you having your own listings, especially in countries where collaborations are really high, the chances of you having your own listings are probably quite slim. You're going to have collaboration listings and things like that. Now, which obviously is not going to help with the duplications. With regards to those duplications, I think one thing is the price point, which annoys a lot of people, annoys a lot of agents, because you've got to update your prices. It's all very well having 5 or 6 properties, or let's say new builds, all on the site. It's all very well having that. But if you've got 3 prices the same and 2 cheaper, where is that consumer going to go? They're going to go to the cheaper listings, right? So if you do work with new builds, you have to ensure, and even if you work with collaborators, you have to ensure that prices get updated. As soon as that price comes in, you've got to update it, and because that will stop a lot of agents complaining, I think, about where there's duplicates, where there's different pricing and things like that. That is one thing that you can be in control of as an agent, is just make sure that your pricing is updated. One other thing that you could do as an agent as well, and again, in areas where listings are difficult to come by, it does become a lot more difficult. 2 things that you can do. Firstly is you can advertise just your exclusive listings, right? And secondly is, if you do go and collaborate with other agents, ask those other agents where they advertise. So what portals does that other agent advertise on? If that other agent advertises on, let's say, Europe.properties, I used to know the name, but there was a Dutch portal called Who Is Houses or something. Sorry to that portal, can't remember your name. If that other agent said to you, I'm on A Place in the Sun, I'm on Green Acres, Europe.properties, and I'm on Develop.de, for example, then don't go and advertise those houses on the same portals, because all it does is just creates more duplication. Go and advertise those properties, somewhere else where that person is not currently advertising. If you're on other portals, just keep them on your website, but then advertise other properties. So there are little bits and pieces that an agent can do, try and avoid that whole duplication issue. The other thing to add to that, I just want to add in, leaves my mind, which is going to leave my mind in a minute, but it will come back to me. Is whole manipulation thing with going in and adding new references and things like that on properties that are not new. There is a way around that, which is actually, if you've got, let's say, 300 listings, okay, there is no shame or there is no harm in you uploading, let's say, 100 properties and paying for 100 properties package, right? And then each week, right, you rotate your listings. If you start with 100 properties, okay, gives you an extra stock of 200 properties that are not being advertised, right? Or haven't been advertised previously. Now, what you can do is you can then swap in those new listings, those new ref numbers. They might not be new properties, but they are new ref numbers, right? And that's not you recycling, because those listings haven't been on the site before. So you could take a lower package, pay for a lower package, but still take advantage of the portal without manipulating it, by just being a little bit cleverer with the listings that you are, the way that you are advertising your listings. You're not changing ref numbers on old listings. What you're doing is effectively using that 200 bank that you've got to ensure that you have new listings week in, week out. It's not difficult to do that. The issue that you have with the manipulation is where just every day you've got somebody in your office going change ref number, change ref number, change ref number, change ref number. Right, there's another one. Right, next day, change them again, change them again, change them again. Are bits and pieces that you can do around that. I don't want to portals by telling agents to advertise less, right, listings and pay for less listings. But I think most portals would agree with me that has to be done with regards to the duplications and the manipulation. And that is one way around it, is to take less listings, but then use that extra bank that you've got behind you to maintain maintain new listings on the site on a weekly basis. Other ways that you can do that. Okay. Something with regards to analysis and analytics as well? I can't remember.
Yeah. We did touch that.
I've just touched my mug
previously.
again, knowing that there's no coffee in it, and I've just
No
picked it up
coffee
again.
in it. Yeah. We did say, okay, are a great way to reach demographic based on location and budget and preferences, as long as you're paying attention to analytics and you track performance metrics.
Yes.
And you can optimize your marketing strategy accordingly.
Yeah.
The agents are just focusing on updating listings, putting listings up there, and they are totally forgetting, or if they are looking at the charts, they just go, and it's a big mistake, because market insight from this gives you access to data on trends and on market conditions, and it allows you the crucial thing to make informed decision on what you're going to do next, based on what's going on that week or for those weeks for that month. Okay.
Regards to and things like that. Most portals will have a really good back office that will kind of idea.
They will track views, they will track inquiries, they will track engagement.
Like yes. Yeah. One of the key things here, I think, is, and this goes back to the first question that we talked about, really, which you are in control of. Make sure that the listings you're uploading to the portal match that portal's target audience. Okay. There is absolutely 0 point in you uploading a Euro a 1 million euro property to a portal that is never in a million years going to generate you an inquiry for that. It's a waste of space. It's a waste of advertising budget, and it's never going to get, people might click on it, but they're clicking on it to look at it. They're not clicking on it to make an inquiry on it. You have to, one of the questions that you can ask is, what is your average person coming to the site looking for? That should be relatively easy for a portal to give you that information, because they do track, they do have a lot of stats behind them. Be able to work out from the inquiries what that average price point is. And if you know that a portal is like has an average buyer of 250 grand coming to their site and looking to buy, right, with a price of 250,000, then why are you uploading listings that are €1 million plus? It doesn't make sense. And I see it a lot of the time. So one thing that you are in control of, certainly in terms of analysis, is looking at what listings on that portal generate the most interest. Okay. If you find that your listings that are valued between 150 and 300,000 generate the most interest, that's what you go with on that particular portal.
To be fair, like most of the inquiries are coming from clients that have a budget of maximum 300K. So
yeah, I mean, like, yes, definitely. And don't get me wrong, there is certainly, in terms of the mainstream portals, are luxury portals out there that can work. They are more expensive for obvious reasons, but in terms of the mainstream, I think it's probably up to sort of 450, 500,000. That's not to say that people will visit the site with budgets of 750, 850, 950, €1 million. But if you're advertising on these portals and you're seeing that, one portal is giving you lead, or one portal, that one portal, sorry, there's more interest in the lower price properties than there are in the higher price properties, then in my opinion, you might as well take those higher properties off and go and advertise them on a portal that's more suited to the higher properties than advertise them on a site that's never going to generate that interest and doesn't generate that interest. It's a waste of advertising budget. So you have to be clever about what you are advertising, and the analytics and analysis that you get from portals on the back office is key to be able to doing that. And you can chop and change on that, and that will be key. Another point I want to add on that, and I'm talking quite a bit, but another thing that I want to add to that is when it comes to actually analyzing portal performance itself. Because we've said time and time again that a portal is not just a number of leads that it generates. So when a portal comes to you,
it gives you brand awareness and visibility,
exactly,
and it gives you those important stats about what's going on the market.
Exactly.
So it's more just about putting the listings out there.
There is so much more to it, and I think when you're renewing on a portal, and I always say this to our clients when we when we analysis and reviews and we have chats with agents, is okay, well, what are you paying for renewal? How many leads have you generated? But more importantly is how many sales have you made off that? And there are so many agents that actually tell me, well, Chris, I know we've made sales, but I don't know where those sales have come from. I'll have to look into that. That should be at the forefront.
You know what? A better question to ask them: how much time have you actually spent on using on a monthly basis, like until you generated a good lead,
a good solid lead, a good stuff it. But it should be at the forefront. Is right. I'm on these 3 portals. Where have my sales come from in the last 6 months? Okay, well, I've had one from, I don't know, let's say I've had one from Second Homes, for example, right? Dutch portal. They've got the Second Homes exhibitions, and they've got a sort of a portal to go with it. Second Homes. Is it Second Homes? I think it's Second Homes. It is home.nl. So let's say you've gone to secondhomes.nl. Let's say you've advertised with for 6 months, and you've got a load of leads through, and they've come around to renew. You need to be able to see how many leads you've generated, firstly, but you also need to see if those leads have turned into sales, right?
Yep.
because you cannot fully analyze whether a portal has worked for you or not just by looking at the numbers of leads it's produced. That's crazy, right? How do you know if that portal is fully working for you or not if you don't know how many sales have been generated from the inquiries that you've made? You don't. So you have to have a way of evaluating those portals based on the number of leads that they've produced, but also based on the sales that made from it, and also based on things like, and also take into account on the back office, it will show you how many clicks each property has had. Now, we all know, and there's no full way of tracking this, but it has to be taken into account, is let's say you've had 25 clicks on a property, right? You don't know how many of those 25 clicks have actually gone to your website after having a look at your properties on the portal, right? So take that into account. If you've had 100 clicks, those 100 clicks, they might have looked at the property and they might have gone, okay, well, let's look at the actual website of this agent. We really like what's on the portal. They might not want to inquire on the portal, but they might go and have a look at your website. How much value do you place on that? So looking at the clicks is just as important as looking at the leads. And a point on the sales themselves, because we'll do a more in depth about this particular point. But there's a question you have to ask yourself here, which is two things. If a portal is generating you leads, right? Is it because you're advertising the wrong type of product for that portal? Okay. Or is the portal not doing enough to generate inquiries? So that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself. And secondly, with regards to the sales, if you're getting leads, but you're not making sales, is there an issue with that particular salesperson? Okay. Or is there an issue with the actual quality of the leads that the portal is generating you? And I'm never afraid when I speak to agents to call up that particular to that agent. Is there an issue with your sales team? How much has your sales team received where they haven't sold? Why are they not selling? Don't be to question your own team behind you. I was a while ago. I had a chat with a portal. I had a chat with an agent. And they were basically saying to me, well, we have to generate new leads all the time, because if we don't generate new leads, my sales team get frustrated because they're always calling the other database. They're always calling through the database. I'm like, yeah, but at the end of the day, they're salespeople. You're employing them to sell to people. Yeah, okay, you can't everybody. I get that, right? Nobody can sell to everybody. If you could, we'd all be millionaires, right? But you can't just have a strategy whereby your salespeople don't want to ring old inquiries or don't want to do the customer service side, which is building that relationship with that old client or that old database lead. They only want new leads in. You can't have a strategy that does that, where your salespeople are refusing to, or not motivated to do that legwork involved in building relationships with inquiries. That's not the correct strategy to have. So don't be afraid to sort of take us back, look at what the portal's generated, look at why the leads aren't being sold to, and don't be afraid to question it. I think that's really important. It's an important point to add. Obviously, you need to have faith in your whole staff. I'm not saying have a big team meeting and go, I'm not saying any of that. Of course not. I'm just saying analysis of a portal is so much more than just, okay, well, I'm paying €500. You've generated me 15 leads. Therefore, you're not doing anything. Therefore, I'm not going to use you again. There is so much more to it than just that, and it has to be taken into account. So yeah.
I'm out of questions.
Oh, okay, that's good. I'm kind of out of things. Well, I'm not. I'm never out of things to say, Simone. As you know me, and I know you, and I've always got things to say. And I've always got things to comment on, and in this industry, there's always points to talk about. But yeah, in summary, or in conclusion, however you want to say it, yeah, I think there's three key points. One, don't be afraid to ask questions when a new portal comes onto rings you up and says, do you want to advertise with me? Make sure that the things you are in control of on a portal, you are doing and you are in control of. And when it comes to the analysis, make sure that you're asking those questions to yourself and fully analyzing a portal, not just on numbers, but also on lead performance and how they are in front of the consumer.
And also take the time.
Oh, fourth point.
Fourth point. Because honestly, on my opinion, I know real estate agencies usually are stressing out on dividing their time between clients, viewings, all the legal paperwork. And then it comes down to the back office, which includes social media marketing, portals, and they were going to skip on some parts of these processes just because they have a lot of other things on their mind. And this one can go like, if we generate some leads on the portals without doing all the work every day or checking out, that's okay. We can skip for a week or 2 or 3. And then you go, whoa.
It's much easier when you've got all these things going on anyway, and you get a call. It's much easier to say, yeah, okay, let's go, rather than deal with all that work involved beforehand. Especially that certainly a lot of the agents that we work, most of the agents that we work with are small to medium-sized enterprises. If you're a large agency and you've got somebody who's purely looking at the marketing side of it, it's easier. If you aren't, it's much easier to say, yep, okay, just see the invoice and we'll go with it and see what happens. But actually, you could be making a mistake by doing that. So it's a very, very valid point there. You're making that, for sure.
So on my part, I think do things from the start right. So use the right portal, use the high quality and videos, and make the most accurate information so you can attract the potential buyer or rental, because we like they don't only sell houses, they also have rentals out there. So keep off which is your main audience and who you are targeting. And just utilize those. Like, even if you don't understand the metrics there or the analytics, ask someone.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're just looking at those and you're going, I have no idea what's going on in here, ask someone, ask a friend, give us a call.
Yeah. I mean, always, there are people that you can ask, and there's never any harm in getting a second opinion. There's never any harm in getting a second opinion. Old adage, which is ask other agents. You've got to bear in mind that other agents aren't always only going to give you that information. And secondly, because it's working for Joe Blogs, and I keep mentioning Joe Blogs. Why is it that we mention Joe Blogs as happy as Larry? All that stuff. Your uncle.
I'm gonna be. It's like, don't ask agents. Ask ChatGPT. It's free. You have the free version, and I'm pretty sure that ChatGPT. Honestly, if you put analytics in there and you just say, explain to me very plain,
true,
very simple, what this is about, he will give you 3-4 bullet points with these are your main demographics. This is happening. This is. So it's not that you don't have tools out there. You do. I think it's just about time. Honestly, it's like it's very fast, it's just making the most.
What I was going to say is, with regards to that second opinion, is just because let's not use Joe Blogs, let's use Cindy Plant, right? Just because Miss Plant or Mrs. Plant is using and having a really good experience, it does not mean that you're going to have the same experience. Everybody is different. Everybody will advertise differently. Everybody will do things differently. It's your money that you're spending at the end of the day. You're not spending another agent's money. You're spending your money. So you have to be fully confident before you go into it.
Chris, plus it also depends a lot on the area that you're in. So some always be top on the preferences of some buyers. So you can't beat, let's say, Costa Blanca in Spain has always been a favorite with British tourists. Let's say you can't beat Bodrum in Turkey, where it's all the glam and luxury. And so some of them will give you like leads just in that specific area. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're
there are portals on that point. There are portals that deal with specific markets. So obviously let's go back to Rightmove, for example, Green Acres, all the mainstream ones that you'll hear about all the time. They will mainly cover UK and international, right? So think Spain, 𝗣cie𝗿𝘁𝘁, Place in the Sun, Green Acres. They mainly cover the UK, but they will also cover the international markets. But there are portals that are specific to just one market. So in Greece, for example, there's a company called 𝗣cie𝗿𝘁𝘁𝘁, which is a Greek market. In Italy, there is a company called 𝗣emobiliare.it, which only covers Italy. So there are portals out there that will only cover certain markets, and they are to look at if you want to target specifically those countries. So yeah, look, if you are unsure, go and talk to somebody about it. Talk to a marketing agency about it, someone who has particular knowledge of using portals, because they will give you the best advice. Or just talk about it internally as a team. Talk with people, sort of show them the portal. Go through. Consumer is a good one. Be a consumer. Think about it from a consumer's perspective. Go onto that portal, search for property. What is that search process like? How do the property on the page and all that kind of stuff?
Next episode, what should we?
Hopefully, this episode has given you some hints and tips sort of taking advantage of portals. If you haven't seen any of our other episodes, please do go and watch those or listen to them whilst you're in the gym or whatever. Have a look at one from last week as well, which was from an agency perspective. Do like and next week, I'm probably going to do part 2 on Facebook next week, which will be things like Facebook ads, boosts, and bits and pieces. So that will be next week's episode. All right, Simona, thank you very much for that. Enjoy. And see you all soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.